Vinteum. Welcome again, everyone, to our webinar today by Vinteum Software. Hurricane Season Preparedness is the title, and it's something I really believe in. If you don't have a website, they're going to tell you why to get one. It's great to be able to digitally communicate, and that's all I'm going to say because I don't want to step out of my boundaries. But with that, I'm just going to do a little bit of housekeeping. Please be sure and put your questions into the Q&A box, not the chat. The vendors or sponsors will put theirs into the chat, probably with their information. However, after the webinar, I will send out a sponsor sheet, which will have everyone's name and contact information. With that, let's get started introducing our sponsors. Today we have, I'll just start with COA Solutions. I don't know if Daniel's on yet. No, okay. COA is an insurance broker. He is serving quite a bit of the southeast part of Florida, but I'm not sure if he's going all over the state yet, but excellent person to ask questions about insurance and laws. He's very on top of the law. So if you want to get an update on that. Next, I want to introduce another sponsor, PD Concrete. They are very involved. They have an engineer on staff that can also help with milestone inspections and very good source for your concrete restoration. Next, I want to introduce Munyon Painting. Munyon Painting is statewide, very large. You might consider them for an extra proposal if you're not using them as your main proposal. They have various cities, I believe 4 cities around the state, and several contacts. There's 3 contacts, so I will have those also on the sponsor sheet. Next, we have on live here today, Bob Aleka. Bob's VP for Communities for Faster.io. Bob, introduce yourself, please, and what are you guys doing for condos?
Well, thanks, Peg. Good afternoon, all. Bob Aleka here with Faster.io, providing streaming TV and internet through our fiber optic systems. A TV product that you can take anywhere that you want to go. And something new that now we're introducing is we can do a TV only bulk for 5 years, opposed to everybody doing 10. So if that's something that may interest you, please give me a call. I'm going to put my information back in the chat. However, we've been building, managing, and maintaining fiber optic and internet systems for over 20 years for most of the providers. And we have our data center here in 4 data centers, Deerfield Beach, Miami, Chicago, and Atlanta, that backs all this stuff up on the back end. So if you're looking for a fiber optic infrastructure with it just internet or internet and TV or just TV, please give me a call. Be more than happy to come out and sit with you and discuss further. Thanks, and enjoy the class.
Thanks, Bob. Great introduction. I want to mention his VP of Marketing does quite a bit of work with Bob behind the scenes, Michael Zirin. Next, I want to introduce the paving lady. They do paving basically from Martin County down through Miami-Dade County, and one of the most used companies down here in South Florida. Dawn Miller is the contact there, and feel free to reach out to her for an extra proposal as well. Coming into budget season, so I'm mentioning this quite a bit. Next, I have Ben Friedman, the president of City Quiet Windows and Doors. Ben, thanks for joining today. You want to tell us about yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Peggy. And thank you to everyone who's attending the webinar. My name is Ben Friedman. I am the president and owner of City Quiet Windows and Doors. As many of you know, we provide turnkey white glove installation services for all window, storefront, door, and railing projects. It is hurricane season, so please don't think it is ever too late and wait for next season. Always try to stay ahead of it. And we love to be thought of as a resource. So please contact us with any questions.
Okay, very good. So City Quiet Windows and Doors has been around for a while. One of the main resources again in South Florida. So thank you for sponsoring. Next, I want to introduce Jamie Gelfand. Jamie is with First Citizens Bank. Jamie, tell us about yourself and what you're doing now, especially with the new law changes.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Jamie Gelfand. I'm the Regional Sales Officer at First Citizens Bank. First Citizens is a 125-year-old top 20 bank. In the CAB, Community Association Banking Division, we provide loans and lockbox for associations. So if you're working on your milestone or any other projects authorized under the declaration of the association and you need assistance with financing, give me a call. I'll put my information in the chat. Enjoy the class.
Great. Thank you, Jamie. And they are, again, one of the top in the state for bank loans. So get prepared. And you're going to hear more about that. Let's introduce our final sponsor, Hafer Company. It's a CPA firm. Corporate office is based out of West Palm Beach, but they have 4 offices around the state. Very qualified. They do CPA service as well as auditing. So if you need any services there, reach out to Nicole Johnson on the sponsor sheet. Before I turn this over to Katie, our speaker today, I want to mention that Vinteum software is international as well as national, very predominant in the state of Florida now and growing and growing. They are the providers of the Condo Association, primarily websites. So that's why we're having this today. Again, I think it's very important what Katie's going to bring to us. So I want to thank you. You guys are my wind beneath my wings for digital service and running this webinar. Katie's a national account executive, and we have on also the international marketing manager, Amanda Janot. Amanda's going to sponsor for us today, and I'll turn that over to Amanda. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peggy. Thank you for this great introduction. We're going to talk about more about Neigbrs and Vinteum in a while throughout our presentation. But currently, as Peggy mentioned, we are the providers of all-in-apps platform and the website solutions for over 300 communities and almost 30,000 unique users. So we're very glad about being here to do this webinar regarding such important thing for Florida community, but we're gonna talk about a little bit how we can prevent other type of nature hazards too. So we're very happy to be here, and we also have a special gift for everybody who's participating. We are currently having our summer campaign offer, so Katie's gonna bring that up by the end of the presentation with a bonus for everybody who's here with us. Thank you very much, Katie.
Yes, thank you so much, Amanda and Peggy, for that introduction. Like Amanda mentioned, we are running a current promotional, so we'll be talking about that a little bit at the end of the presentation as kind of a thank you special offer for attending today. But before that, we'll go ahead and talk about hurricane season. So I'll go ahead and pull up my presentation here just for a couple of housekeeping things. Make sure that if you have any questions, you are popping those into the Q&A section. We won't be monitoring the chat for any questions. So if you have something you want us to address, feel free to put it in the Q&A and we'll either get to it on the slide throughout the presentation, and we'll also do a larger Q&A at the end. So with that being said here, let's go ahead and talk about hurricane season preparedness. So hurricane season, as most of you know, is officially upon us. So this is very topical information. And like Bob mentioned, don't think that it's too late just because hurricane season has already started. You know, usually June, there isn't too much activity. So you have a little bit of time to get some of these processes in place and still prepare ahead of time before these major storms start hitting. So today, in addition to hurricane preparedness, we're going to specifically focus on how to get your community digital. We're going to talk about some of the features of Neigbrs by Vinteum, which is our HOA and condo management software, and how you can leverage that technology to share information with your residents and make sure that you have a communication plan in place. So with that being said, I'll go ahead and talk a little bit more about the agenda for the day. So first off, we're going to be talking about the outlook for the 2025 hurricane season. It's always good to know what you're going to be dealing with here, although we're not able to, of course, to predict, specific storms at specific times. It's always good to know what the experts are saying to expect over the next few months. We're also going to take a look at the urgency of preparedness. So why is this topical? Why should this be a priority for you as a board member or as a CAM? We'll chat through Neighbors a little bit as well. We'll go over some of the features that we have to offer and how you can leverage those not only for hurricane preparedness, but also just to streamline your day-to-day management. And then we'll chat through strategies that you can employ as a board member for before, during, and after emergencies. So each of those phases looks a little bit different, and we'll be breaking that down for you in more detail. And then, of course, like Amanda already mentioned, we do have that special offer that we'll be getting to at the end of the demonstration today. So to kick things off here, we'll take a look at the 2025 Atlantic hurricane season outlook. So this is based on NOAA's predictions for the 2025 hurricane season. And unfortunately, as you're seeing here, it does look like there is a 60% chance of an above normal activity season. So coming off of 2024, I know a lot of communities are still reeling from Hurricane Milton, Hurricane Helene. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like we're going to get much of a break when it comes to our 2025 hurricane season. It's going to be more of the same. As of right now, they are predicting 6 to 10 total hurricanes with 3 to 5 major hurricanes predicted. So, of course, this is a little bit scary to see, but the good news is here, there is some silver lining. This forecast gives you the time to plan ahead for these storms. So again, like Bob mentioned, just because hurricane season has started doesn't mean that it's too late to get these plans in place, share that information with your residents, and get your community digital. So something you should be asking yourself as a board member is your community prepared right now? If that answer is no, let's go ahead and talk about some strategies that you can utilize to get there. We'll chat through the urgency of preparedness here. So again, why is this such a priority? Why does this need to be something that you are getting in place sooner rather than later? Well, like I mentioned, I know a lot of our communities in Florida were affected pretty heavily by Hurricane Milton. Overall, it caused over $50 billion worth of damage, which is astronomical number here. And it left over 1.5 million residents without power. So a lot of that is, of course, causing issues when it comes to preparing supplies. But the biggest piece that we noticed here is that over 40% of residents in these affected areas reported not receiving timely alerts. So that is something that you can utilize leverage. You can utilize technology to improve communication here. If you as a board member have a proactive plan in place to communicate with your residents, we want to make sure that this number is decreasing here. We don't want 40% of your residents out of the loop. We want to make sure that residents feel informed and have all of the information that they need before emergency hits. And this is something that is across the US as well. So even if you're calling in today and you're not from Florida, keep in mind that there are all sorts of disasters across the US. The state of Texas declared emergencies due to wildfires, and Minneapolis has declared emergencies due to snow. So keep in mind that there are lots of types of natural disasters no matter where you're located. Peggy, you have a question? You're muted there, Peggy.
Sorry about that. I just want to mention that yesterday I caught it on the news that there are 4 tropical storms developing now coming through the Mexican border and going into the Gulf. So now how many are going to develop, we don't know yet. But this would be, if I was a resident, I would want to know like that minimum information. So, this is where this digital, blasting can be great to everybody get a little quick email or some sort of a text message that, hey, be alert. That's just my personal preference.
Absolutely, Peggy. I think over communicating as a board member is always the best strategy. And I think that's a great point. Even when these storms start developing, you don't know which path they're going to take. You don't know if you're going to be in that path of landfall and that kind of cone of impact there. So it's great to just start getting that information out there. Hopefully most of those will be false alarms, but that way your residents can stay alert, start getting their supplies ready, and start taking a look at some of those things like evacuation plans and shelter sites. So that's a great point. Take a look here as well that HOAs and condo associations are responsible for ensuring the safety and well-being of their community. So this doesn't mean that you can change the path of a storm. You can't ensure that you won't be affected by hurricanes, But what you can do is get this information out to your residents before emergency strikes. So again, share all of this information with them ahead of time, whether it's evacuation plans, site maps, shelter locations. Also identify vulnerable residents so that you have a specific plan for those types of residents as well. So really just do everything that you can to provide safe and effective communication for your association. And again, even if you're not in Florida, disaster preparedness is still something that you need to remember. I, for example, live up in Washington State. We deal quite a bit with wildfires, earthquakes. If you're in California, both of those are going to be relevant as well. So the first step is based on your location, figure out what you're going to be affected by. Especially when it comes to hurricanes, this is a great checklist to kind of ask yourself as a board member. So first off, which vendors will you need if this scenario happens? So if you're in Florida, do you have debris removal? Do you have concrete restoration? Do you have all of these vendors pre-lined up so that in the aftermath, you know exactly who to call? You also need to understand what your insurance coverage is and make sure that it is sufficient for those types of disasters. We have seen a lot of communities that have ended up in over their heads due to insufficient insurance coverage and just not having a good understanding of what their options are in regards to insurance. So make sure that you are reaching out to your insurance representative, understanding exactly what your coverage is. Very important to take photos of all of the structures in your community so that you have that as evidence for your insurance company as well. They're not going to volunteer to pay you, so you got to make sure that you are preparing ahead of time and have all of that prepared here. You also need to understand who's your point of contact. How are you going to delegate communication within the board so that if residents need to reach you and they have questions, they do have a streamlined process. Also understand how you're going to protect residents. So again, identifying vulnerable residents that may have communication hurdles, mobility issues, providing information like evacuation and site maps here. These are going to be ways that you can preemptively protect your residents. And also assess the impact on your community as a whole. So whether you're looking at infrastructure and structural consequences, again, identifying those vulnerable residents and financial impact. That really comes back down to that insurance conversation, understanding where your reserve funds are at here, and making sure that you are sufficiently prepared if disaster does strike. Emergency preparedness is more than just your own personal supplies. It's about how fast and clearly you can reach your community. So again, this happens when you're providing that information ahead of time and also having that communication plan during and after the emergency event. Most communities that I talk with are still using outdated tools. I speak with board members every day, and a lot of what I hear is that you're relying on things like Outlook, Gmail, individual email strands, paper mailers even. And while these are great for, letting people know about a community barbecue, they're not the most efficient way to communicate in an emergency type scenario. Digital communication is much quicker and much more efficient. And it also allows you to ensure that your residents are receiving that communication by sending it out in an omni-channel fashion. And this is something, of course, storms and emergency preparedness really highlight the need and the way that there can be safety consequences for not communicating efficiently. This is also something that you need just for your day-to-day management of your association. Even outside of emergency times, streamlined association and transparency for residents is really something that should be a top priority here. So we'll go ahead and chat through some of the features of Neigbrs by Vinteum, which again is an all-in-one HOA and condo management software. We'll talk about some of the ways that you can leverage these features to not only improve your response during disasters, but also help streamline some of your day-to-day responsibilities as a board member. So first off, Neigbrs provides a secure, modern community association website. So this will allow you to have that public presence for your association. You can attract prospective buyers here. You can also, most importantly, stay compliant with those changing laws. As Peggy and Jamie mentioned, there are always updates coming out here. So you've got to make sure that you are doing your best as a board member to get your community compliant here. There's also easy access for the private section for your residents and board members. That way you can communicate directly to your residents in any type of emergency scenario. Once you're in that backend portal, there's going to be a whole range of features that you can utilize here. The most popular and highly utilized feature within Neighbrs is probably our notices tool. This is an easy way to send out email, push notification, and text message blasts to your residents. You can send that out either community-wide if it's an emergency type scenario, or you can always narrow it down to specific subgroups. For example, if you have different committees who handle different aspects of your emergency preparedness plan, you can always send that targeted messaging out here as well. This is a great way to send out information ahead of time when it comes to emergency preparedness. So share those evacuation routes, share those shelter locations with your residents, not only in that document repository, but go ahead and send it out as a notice as well. We do also have a direct integration with Zoom. So this is going to allow you to host online meetings. I know a lot of communities in Florida have seasonal residents. So this is a great way to ensure that even residents who may not be physically present during hurricane season have the opportunity to stay safe and informed with what the plan is for the association, how they can keep their unit safe, if they have any tenants, how they're communicating to those tenants, and making sure that they have access to that information as well. We also have our community calendar. So this is a great way to sync all of the events within your association, whether it's something like a barbecue, maintenance, board meetings, any of those aspects that residents need to know about. Especially when it comes to hurricane recovery efforts, this can be a really useful way to let residents know which types of vendors will be coming into your community. And our text blast and smart call feature, this is really our core emergency communication tool. This is a way to send out messaging directly as a text or as a phone call to your residents. So in an urgent scenario like a hurricane, this is a great way to send those live updates to residents. Even if you have residents that don't have a mobile number, our smart call feature reaches landlines. So again, it's always great to identify who those vulnerable residents may be and cover your bases by communicating in an omni-channel fashion. Go ahead, Peggy.
I just wanted to mention that a lot of people don't take advantage of these resources in your local cities and your counties. You can actually invite them to come and speak to you about where are the locations of your shelters, and just again review what are the best items to have on hand, just in general information. And you can make it a town hall meeting, or you can just have it where they come or speak to you. Even I think they're doing it by Zoom now, but you can also utilize Neighbrs, this particular program at the website, to announce it to everyone. Come to the clubhouse. It's a good way to also form some more community harmony at the same time. So just an idea. A lot of people don't utilize it or know about it, but your cities and counties, if you don't know who to call your fire department first. Call one of the your city manager's office, and they will be glad to come out at no charge. So get together, be prepared.
Absolutely. I think that's a great point, Peggy. We actually had a community last year, kind of in the lead up to Hurricane Milton, that hosted a Zoom meeting with local fire department. So they were actually able to cover all of that information. They were able to discuss site maps, evacuation plans, all types of different shelters as well, whether it's pet friendly, whether it is EDA compliant. So really, really great information, and a great way to kind of leverage some of that technology to just get that information out to your residents. Go ahead, Amanda.
Well, we also have a question here in the Q&A. Does Vinteum support SMS alerts and phone calls for emergency, or do we need separate service for each?
Great question. So with our text blast and smart call tool, that covers your SMS blasts, so any of those text message blasts, as well as any of those phone call blasts. So that is fully covered, included in the price plan of Neighbrs. You don't need any sort of external tool or technology here. That's something that as an administrator, you can send those messages out from within your Neighbrs portal, and you actually receive delivery reports of how many residents received that message. So that's really powerful when it comes to ensuring that your residents have all of this information. Great question.
Awesome. And how many CMS can we send to the community? Do we have like a limit, something like that?
Great question. So texting is completely unlimited. You're not ever going to hit a window when it comes to limitations on text messaging. So that is a great way to ensure that all of that information is covered here. We also have a limit of 500 smart calls per unit per month for our residents. So definitely not something that I don't think we've ever had a client that has reached that. So even though it isn't technically unlimited, I don't think you're going to need to call residents more than 500 times within a month. So that is a great point here, is that is totally unlimited. And again, it is totally included in that price plan. So you never need to go external for any of those tools.
That's awesome. That's a great feature, right?
Definitely, definitely. And one of our most popular utilized tools as well. I believe over 90% of our Florida clients utilized that text and smart call feature during hurricane season last year. So, you know, it is something that's really popular and something that is right there for the taking. And moving in here to our next few features, we do have an amenity reservation tool. So this is a great way to streamline any of those communal spaces. If you're lucky enough to live in an association with clubhouses, pools, tennis courts, this is a great way to allow residents to secure those for any private events here. Bring that onto the platform. It makes it much easier for residents and much easier for board members and CAMs to manage those amenities. We also have our maintenance request tool. So this is a great way to allow residents to escalate things like maintenance issues, architectural review requests, or even report things in communal areas that need attention from the board. So especially when it comes to hurricane recovery efforts, this is a great way for residents to let you know that, hey, there's a tree down in this road that needs to be handled. And it allows you as board members to organize those recovery efforts in a better approach here. We also have our incident reporting tool. So this functions in a workflow very similarly to our maintenance requests. The primary difference here is that this is utilized to escalate any type of violation within the community. And it's a great way to send out those official violation letters to your residents as well. We also have voting here. So we support both informal surveys as well as your official e-voting. So again, something that is really great if you have people like snowbirds that aren't necessarily physically present within the association, but you still need them to participate remotely. This is a great way to bring that onto an online platform. It also streamlines and saves a little bit of costs for printing those paper ballots and the time spent collecting and reading through those paper ballots here. Go ahead, Amanda.
Sorry, I was drinking water.
No worries.
We have two questions here. Does Neighbors able to accommodate a reservation for longer than a 24-hour period of time?
Question. So yes, you as board members get to set up each amenity space with specific parameters. So you can set any level of length of reservation. So if you are looking for something that is booked out, for example, for a weekend, you can set those parameters within the setup of the amenity reservation tool.
Great. That's awesome. Another question. Can our board update the resident contact list in real time, like if someone moves in?
Absolutely. Yes. That is something that you will have the capabilities and you will receive full training on. So you can manage that resident list as units sell and new buyers move into the association. It's also something that you can reach out for support on to your account manager at Vinteum anytime. They're happy to hop on a Zoom session with you and show you that process again. They can also do it themselves if that's something you'd prefer. Definitely something that I recommend is always keeping that resident list up to date, especially when it comes to emergency preparedness. You need to know who is in your community and who you need to communicate to, especially knowing who is actually physically present. So that is a great point, Amanda. Definitely something that board members can handle on their own. That way, you know, it's always the most up-to-date list.
Awesome. There's a couple of more questions coming up. I think we can already answer them as well. So is there an extra charge for voting? That's a very interesting question.
Great question. So e-voting is included in our price plan as well. So that's not a separate feature. Same thing as texting and calling. That is included in your full Neighbors package, not something that's going to be an add-on here.
For sure. That's great news because we launched this feature quite recently, and we know how important it is, especially when people aren't be able to be present in assemblies and things like that. So that's definitely a great feature that we have. Another question, can we send an SMS to a specific street, for example?
Absolutely. So you can always narrow down messaging to specific units as needed. So these blasts can be community-wide if it's something that needs to go out to all residents, but keep in mind you can always narrow down those filters. So if only one street needs to receive that message, you can always narrow down to just those residents.
Great. Thank you, Katie. And of course, we are passing through our features in a more overview way, but you can always schedule a free demo with us so we can make a step-by-step and enter with more details regarding our those features, our platform, our app. So feel free to do that. We're gonna send the link at the end as well. So it's a free demo, and we can get deeper regarding those specifics and other questions that you might have. But also, please send them on the Q&A that we're happy to explain it to you as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Amanda. The free demo is a great way to really dig into these features in a little bit more detail. If you have any specific questions about how your community would utilize those, it also gives us an opportunity to be a little bit more personalized for your association. So please feel free to reach out. Like Amanda mentioned, we'll have a QR code at the end. We'll also be sending out that demo link via email. So we'd love to get that scheduled and talk a little bit more specifically here. But moving back here into, again, some of these high level features, we do have our asset management tool. So this tool essentially allows you to track any assets that the association is responsible for, from things like physical equipment. So if you have pool furniture, gym equipment, and you can even store things like your insurance policies here. That way there's visibility for your board members into what their responsibilities are, when there's going to be action items needed here. And it's a really great way to, again, understand which assets may be affected by damage in hurricane season. We also have our document repository here. So this is going to allow you to store any communal document for your association. You can always set different permission levels here as well. So if you have more sensitive documentation that's maybe board member eyes only, keep in mind that you can always store that within the same portal and just adjust those permissions of who within the association can view them. Almost all of our communities, we always recommend this as a best practice. They do have a folder within that document repository specifically for disaster preparedness. So again, this is where they're going to store things like those evacuation routes, shelter information, who the points of contact are as well. So keep in mind that that is a great strategy when it comes to keeping that information up to date and accessible for your residents. We also have several accounting integrations. So if you do want to bring billing onto your platform, and again, keep it this one-stop shop and all of your management tasks flow through Neighbrs, you can utilize these financial billing options through QuickBooks, Wave, or Zego. Again, happy to chat through with your community which one of those may be the best fit here. And then we do also have the option for access control and package lists here. So if you do have a reception area of your community, this is a great way to track any visitors or guests, especially when it comes to hurricane season. It's very important to know who is physically present at your association. So this access control tool is a great way to know who has entered the association and who you may need to keep track of. And this package control option is a great way for residents. If you do have a mailroom, residents will know that they have a package that they need to go pick up here. Now that we've kind of talked through some of the high level features of Neighbrs here, let's chat through what you can do as a board member to prepare for each phase of emergency preparedness. So first off, we'll take a look at what you can do before the emergency. So again, the best time to have these conversations is not when you see that storm in the forecast. It's when, emergency hasn't struck yet and you have a little bit more time and clear-headed approach to consolidating this information. Planning ahead is also going to make it a lot easier to communicate with residents during and after the storm. If you have that plan laid out, you know who your points of contact are. This is going to function a lot more smoothly here. So taking a look at some of the ways that Neighbrs can help. First off, create a checklist for all of the responsibilities that you have as a board member before the emergency. I'm a huge proponent of checklists, to-do lists. If I don't write it down, I'm going to forget it. So this is a great way to make sure that you are being thorough and proactive as a board member or a CAM here. So first off, gather emergency contacts for your residents. Make sure that you know who to reach out to if disaster does strike. If you're not able to reach a resident, you should have that point of contact externally from the association. And exactly like what the question that Amanda mentioned earlier, keep that resident list up to date. You need to make sure that you have the most up-to-date list of your current owners, and again, who is going to be physically present at the association. So you need to communicate all of that information to the owners. That way they understand exactly what they need to do to keep their unit safe and keep themselves safe. You should create an evacuation plan. So again, make sure that residents are aware of where their exits are and how they can get to those shelter locations. So this is important whether you're in a condo or an HOA, you need to provide this information for residents, especially for those more vulnerable residents here. Also, build an emergency first aid kit. This is something that can happen even outside of a hurricane. You never know when you're going to need things like gauze, any type of, Benadryl, things like that. So keep all of this on site at your association. That way you're prepared in any of those emergency events. Update your insurance information. So again, this is something I'm going to keep bringing up because it is of the utmost importance. We have seen so many community associations that did not have sufficient coverage that are now in the process of reconciling that. So make sure that you have sufficient coverage. Make sure you have an understanding of what your plan is, and take photos. You need to have those photos for evidence before the storm. That way the insurance company can tell exactly what that damage was. Go ahead, Peggy.
Just wanted to ask you, can you add to this a way to list the resident, keep it confidential at the same time, but add where they can create a residency list, everyone's, emergency contact info?
Absolutely. So within our portal, Peggy, all of the administrators are going to have access to not only the full resident list, so contact information for all of your residents. You also create all of your emergency contact information within that as well. So as a board member or a CAM, you're going to have that access. It will be confidential from the other residents. So, don't worry about that privacy of your information. But for the administrators who need to know that information, there's going to be a view that provides that within the software.
And then just to follow up, I just want to recommend to the board members that someone on the board, a director probably that, could help and be in charge of that list, to be, to ensure that that list is current, up to date, and maybe take it a step further of who the resident would like you to contact, or the association or the manager to contact if there is an emergency. Things happen. So, being prepared with your extension of yourself, plus, who your emergency contact would be, a daughter, a nephew, a niece, whoever that might be.
Absolutely. I think that's a great point, Peggy. I think it's always important, again, whether it comes to hurricanes or any other type of event that can pop up, it is must-have information for the board. And I think absolutely delegating that to a specific person is the best way to ensure that it doesn't slip through the cracks here. So that was a great point. And the very last one here is to identify vulnerable residents. So again, if you do have any residents that may have mobility issues, they may have communication hurdles, you need to understand how you're going to communicate with those residents and how you're going to assist them if it does come to something like an evacuation. Amanda, go
Hi,
ahead.
Katie. Sure. So we have a couple of questions. One of them is, where can residents access this platform? I didn't understand. So, all residents, not only board members, have access to the platform. Of course, the board member or the property manager will be able to manage and update and do more things on the platform because they're in charge of that. But the residents also have access to the app, to the website. And Katie, do you want to explore this a little bit more, please?
Yeah, great question. So like Amanda mentioned, all of your residents are going to have access to this portal. Board members and CAMs may have a little bit more permissions in terms of administrative functionality. So like I mentioned, the board members are probably the only ones who are going to be able to view things like emergency contact information and personal resident contact information. But each resident is going to have the option to log in either through the app, which is compatible on both smartphones as well as tablets, or the web version. Once they log in, they're going to be able to view all of those documents. So again, like I mentioned, we have a lot of communities that will create a disaster preparedness folder. Residents can go visit that folder anytime they would like to review things like site maps, evacuation routes, shelter information. They're also going to be able to go back and view previously released notices. So if you send out an email and a resident accidentally deletes it, no worries at all. They can always go back into their portal to review any of those previously announced information. So it's a great way to, again, ensure that that's going out to your residents in an omni-channel fashion, but they're also going to be able to access that portal and review any of that information on their own time.
Great. That's a great answer, Katie. Thank you. We have a couple of more questions. Can the platform shows who received messages and who may need the wellness in that case?
Absolutely. So for all of our emergency communication tools, or all of our communication tools in general, even day-to-day communication, you are going to have delivery receipts. So for our text blast and smart call features, you're going to see how many of those tools were successfully delivered. So you can see how many of those texts were delivered and how many of those phone calls actually went through. I know sometimes, especially during an emergency, cell service can be a little bit spotty. So if you see that any of those text messages or phone calls failed, you know that you may need to try a different channel of communication. And for any of the emails that are system generated, you're not only going to be able to verify that they were delivered, you're actually going to be able to see if they were opened and read. So this is a great way to verify that your information is not only being delivered, but that residents are actually engaging with it, absorbing that information. So you can rest assured that you understand exactly who has received that communication.
Perfect. And I think you already answered this one, but if residents need to send messages to the board, is that possible?
Absolutely. So we do have a feature that is called Talk to Board on the website, and it is exactly what it sounds like. This is a way for residents to escalate any kind of question or communication to the board members. So if they have a question about what they should do in an evacuation, if they have a question about insurance coverage, they can always reach out to the board directly here. And then there are going to be features that they can utilize to communicate to the board. For example, maintenance requests. If they want to let the board know that their condo unit may need a little bit of TLC, they can escalate that through the board as well. So lots of ways for residents to communicate and ensure that, you know, there is back and forth communication. It isn't just one way from board to residents. We want to make sure that residents have the ability to communicate as well.
That's great. Thanks, Katie.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Amanda. Taking a look here at how Neighbrs can help you with this checklist and with all of this preparation, you can leverage technology to store and organize all of this information. So like I mentioned, utilize your document storage so that if you create that folder for disaster preparedness, that's going to live within that database for residents to check out at any point. You can utilize the Zoom meetings. So again, even if you have snowbirds that aren't going to be physically present during the storm, they need to know what they can do to protect their unit. So they should have access to those remote online meetings. Again, any of those communication channels, residents not only will receive it initially, but they can actually go back and review any of those messages as well. So that way, if they ever want to go back and review that information, it's something that's right there within their portal. And this is a great way to stay organized. Again, you can know exactly who has received which information. So that way, if you do have any vulnerable residents that may need some extra steps to actually receive the information, you can identify who those residents are as board members. And use this to raise awareness. So this really comes to communicating ahead of time. Like Peggy mentioned, As soon as you see tropical storms start developing, get that out to your residents so that they know they need to stay alert. Use the Zoom integration to host those meetings for preparedness. I always recommend doing it at least twice a year, but we have communities that do it quarterly, even monthly during hurricane season, just to really review that and make sure that it is concrete and solidified for their residents. And again, with Neighbors, you can communicate in an omni-channel fashion. So email, text messaging, phone calling, and push notifications through the app. So this is a really great way to cover your bases so that no matter how residents like to receive communication, you can rest assured that it is getting delivered. And especially during the hurricane, when you never know if internet or phone service is going to be reliable, pushing it out through all of these channels is a great way to increase the odds of residents actually receiving that information. Now we can take a look at what your approach should be during the emergency. So as a board member, it's really important to stay calm and keep clear communication for your residents. If you are panicked, that's going to create panic within your association. And this really comes back down to preparing ahead of time. If you know exactly how you're delegating tasks during the storm, if you know who your point of contact is going to be for your residents, this is going to allow you to execute that communication plan with a lot more smoothness and streamlining here. So to utilize Neighbors, you can use all of the communication tools that we already touched on here. So like I mentioned, during the event, you never know if cell service or internet is going to be reliable. So communicating through each of those channels is a great way to ensure that it is still going to be received somehow. And you will always have those delivery reports, so you know if there's any residents who may have missed something. Again, keep the tone clear, calm, and concise. Let your residents know only the most important information. But if you are proactively communicating, that's a great way to avoid any kind of panic or extra stress levels within the association. And send status updates. So, a lot of times there are live tracking for these storms. So make sure that your residents receive that from you. Don't rely on them looking at the news channel or following weather apps themselves. If you have that information as a board member, send that out to your residents as soon as it's available to you. And it's also a great idea to use visual aids. During an event, residents may not have a chance to, sit down and read a whole paragraph of information. So if they can easily access something like a site map with a direct evacuation route highlighted, that's going to go a lot further than, pages and pages of information here. So visual aids are a great way to communicate that information clearly and quickly during the event. And after the emergency, you're going to have a little bit of reconciliation for some of that damage. So make sure that, again, board members are going to be accessible here and create those points of contact ahead of time. Who is going to be reaching out to those vendors to organize debris removal? Who is going to be checking in on those vulnerable residents to ensure that everything's okay and communicating to their emergency contacts? Provide updates on these recovery efforts. So don't leave your residents wondering if that tree is going to get removed. If you've already scheduled a vendor to come deal with it tomorrow, send that out to your residents as soon as that's available to you. Again, it's a great way to avoid confusion and panic amongst your residents, and it really increases that sense of transparency on their end as well. And like I mentioned, know exactly who those vendors are going to be that you need to reach out to. Have those contacts ready to go ahead of time so that as soon as roads are cleared and you can get vendors in, you have that process already moving here. You need to know who those debris removals are, which repairs you may need, and who you're going to contact for those. We have a lot of great sponsors on this webinar that handle things like that. So, that is a great place to start if you're not sure who may be the best fit for your association. And Neighbors can help here. Oh, go ahead, Peggy.
I'm sorry, that was a little late. I just want to mention that there are some homeowner associations out there that everyone is pretty much on your own versus the association that pretty much manages all of the common areas and everyone gets their trees cut at the same time. Well, in the associations, everybody's pretty much on your own. Maybe you could contact the office, tell the property manager, hey, I'm getting my tree cut or trimmed or whatever. And if you could blast this out to everybody else, maybe you could get a discount like the other associations that already do this collectively. The reason I know this is having worked for a large landscaping company a few years back. This is how we'd have a truck go out there and cut maybe 10 homes or even 200 homes at the same time. And everybody paid their own individual amounts, but at the same time, it was all addressed prior to the hurricane season. So now would be a good time to do that or take a look at doing that.
Absolutely. I think that's a great point, Peggy, especially in HOAs where, some of that debris and, recovery efforts may be more on the homeowner than the actual association. It's still important to know which vendors are coming into which homes. And like you said, if you can capitalize and utilize that vendor for more than one unit, you may get some group pricing discounts and just have a little bit more organization in terms of who's coming in and out of your association. So that is a great point, Peggy. And Amanda, was there a question? You're on mute, Amanda.
Sorry, that was
No
a very
worries.
good consideration. Indeed, Peggy, thank you for that. And we do have one more question. What about residents who are not that familiar with technology? I manage a condo where most people are 60 plus and very resistant to change. Well, I think we're very familiar of these challenges and difficulties as well, right, Katie?
Absolutely. So we do work with quite a few 55 plus community associations. Even communities that aren't specifically 55 plus do typically have residents that are a little bit less tech savvy and just don't have a lot of exposure to digital platforms. So with Neighbors, we do provide training not only for the administrators, for board members and CAMs, but we also provide in-depth resident training sessions. So this is a great way to train residents on exactly how to access Neighbors, exactly where to look for these particular pieces of information. So how to navigate to the document portal to find that disaster preparedness folder, how to review information from the board in their notices section. And it's a great way to really cover those communication channels. So even if you have residents that, for example, don't have a mobile phone number, maybe they only have a landline, you can utilize our smart call tool to reach out directly to that resident. So even the least tech savvy residents can still be added into Neighbors and you can still use their contact information to reach them, whether or not they're checking the portal. So keep in mind that we provide a lot of resources for residents to understand how to access information on their end. And it's also still a great way to be proactive as a board member and cover those omni-channel communications. So even if you have a resident that, only can answer landline calls, you should still be sending out those phone calls to that resident.
That's great. And also one thing good to remember besides all of these support features that we do have and provide for those who are not tech savvy, we have a great customer success and support team as well. So they are available to train, to explain, to do some sessions so we can really educate and try to generate more resources so they could start getting used to use other types of technology or tools, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. We are all about continued education here at Vinteum. That's why we provide these classes. But we really want to make sure that that is available for our clients as well on both the resident end and the administrator end. So I think that's a great point.
Awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely. And let's talk about now the ways that you can leverage Neighbors for, these types of events after the emergency. So keep in mind that a lot of times when there is something like a hurricane that is a disaster, that is going to allow you to schedule emergency board meetings here. So of course, make sure that you're checking in with your attorney to make sure that you understand all of those parameters. But those emergency board meetings typically happen shortly after these events in that aftermath. And these meeting formats are a lot more flexible than typical board meetings. You can host them virtually, in person, or hybrid. Typically, it just depends on how roads are and if evacuation was required, if you're actually going to be able to be there in person, or if you do need to use it entirely online. I think having some sort of online option, though, is always a great way to, again, just open up a little bit of flexibility for residents who may have had to evacuate or may not even be in Florida due to that seasonality here. So using that Zoom integration opens up the ability not only for board members, but also to host town halls so that residents are on the same page. So keep in mind that that opens up a lot of flexibility here. And in conclusion, just kind of pulling together all of the information that we've touched on here today. If you don't remember anything else here, make sure that you're walking away with some of these core features. So how can you better prepare for hurricane season? Before disaster strikes, and this is very important, don't have this conversation when the hurricane's coming tomorrow. Make sure that you start having these conversations now. Review and update your emergency plans. This says annually. I always suggest even as often as biannually, just to make sure that you have the most up-to-date information and that your residents have access to that information. You should also conduct regular training and drills. So like Peggy mentioned, reach out to your local first responders, have them come visit, host them on Zoom, allow them to share their insights for your community, because I think that's really, really powerful. That's their area of expertise. And it's a great way to practice some of those training sessions as well. And ensure that all residents are informed and prepared. So send this information out in an omni-channel fashion, store it on your portal so that they can review it after the fact. Really just leverage this technology for seamless communication ahead of time. And that's really going to open up the ability for you to stay calm and concise during the emergency and to efficiently reconcile in the aftermath as well. Now, as we mentioned, we do have a special gift currently for Neighbrs. So as a thank you for joining, I wanted to highlight our start of summer sale. So this is going to offer up to 3 months of Neighbrs for free. This is valid for our annual or biennial plans. So again, I would love to get a specific demo scheduled for your association. If you have questions, happy to provide a customized proposal for your community as well. Like Bob mentioned, it's not too late, even though it's already hurricane season. If you start today, you can be up and running in as little as 3 to 10 business days with Neighbrs. So keep in mind that this is something that really can have a fast turnaround and you can start seeing results within your association. And was there a question, Amanda?
No, not a question. I just wanted to mention that we do gonna send to everybody who's participated in this presentation, as well as more details regarding the discount, and also I think Peggy will send that as well, and about the discount and this presentation and the article that we wrote updating for those who are in Florida, the Florida Law website.
Great point, Amanda. Yes, we will send all of this information out after the fact here. If you have your phone handy, feel free to use this QR code here as well. So you can book this live demonstration. We'll be sending out that scheduling link as well. It's a great opportunity to go through any specific questions you have about the software. Again, customized proposal for your individual association. And this way you can go ahead and get started on bringing your community digital and really make sure that you are prepared for what looks like is going to be a pretty active hurricane season this year.
So please, everybody, be safe. We are here to help. We know that's a lot of things going on, so you can always go back to this presentation and see the checklists and other things that we recommend you to do. Besides our tool and platform, we are here to help and to educate you and give resources regarding how to manage the day-to-day of your HOAs and POAs. So please count with us.
Great point, Amanda. Yes, we always are here for any questions. So please feel free to reach out. We'll be sending out the slide as well and the video recording. So you can always go back and review this information as needed. With that being said, I want to open the floor up to see if we have any other questions that are coming through. So I'll go ahead and give everyone a minute or two to pop those questions in. If anything occurs to you after this meeting, feel free to reach out to me directly as well. Always happy to chat in more detail.
Okay. Thank you so much. Great pointers again. Just amazing to stay on top of this. You are the leaders, you board members and managers. As you know, your community is going to turn to you for information. You need to take advantage of these presentations by the counties and the cities and the emergency responders. They are leaders in our community as well, just in general to get prepared. I do want to mention a couple of upcoming webinars that I'm having. This new laws are coming out, so right away I have booked on July 11th the legal update. It's going to be from 1 to 2:30 p.m. with Jane Boland. She's an attorney. July 10th, just right before that, next week we have the first Spanish presentation for 2025. It's 12 to 1:30, and it's all on building preparations, and again by an engineering firm, Karen's Engineering. I've been mentioning it on others. Very important webinar that I think needs to be reviewed. Again, the Reserve Study Company by Will Simons, the president, is going to give a presentation on Sears once again in detail. It's so hard to keep up with all these details, you guys. So hopefully collaboratively through your boards, you can figure all this out and stay on top of the laws with your manager helping you. And the last presentation booked so far for July 29th is Ben Moore. Benjamin Moore is giving a presentation on the latest and greatest information on paints. So that will be from 12 to 1:30, and I will send this out to everyone on today. So thank you, everybody. I saw someone put it in the chat box. Be safe. Have a nice July 4th. We've had little rain, so that could be another hazard coming at us. Again, to keep your neighbors, your websites up to date. If you don't have a website, I highly recommend Vinteum, and I can't thank you enough, Vinteum, for all you do.
Thank you, Peggy. Thank you. We do have 3 more questions that just came up. I think we have time to answer those. Is that okay?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Peggy, for all the compliments and the help. We are great. We're very grateful for the partnership that we have with you. Thank you so much. And of course, the other sponsors as well. Thank you for being here with us. And let's go to the final questions then. We had trouble getting everyone's contact info updated. Does the system help with that?
Great question. So the system is a great way to just consolidate all of that information. I know a lot of times when you're communicating individually with residents, you may have a phone number here, an email address there. I think the benefit of consolidating that into one database is you know exactly which information you do have and you know which information you don't have. So that way, you know, we've even had clients that go door to door knocking on residents and saying, hey, you haven't given us your email address. We want to make sure that we can communicate with you. So it's, again, a great way to just really visualize the information that is up to date and maybe where you have some gaps that you need to go back and fill in.
Great. I think that really helps. Thank you, Katie. The next one is oh, Luisa, Luisa just comment. So thank you for your comment, Luisa. We also are praying for everybody to be safe during this hurricane season, and we sending and wishing all the best for you, that hopefully nothing too serious happened and that you could be home safe. Thank you for your comment. And the last question is, a lot of our residents prefer phone calls over text and email. Can you talk about the calls more?
Absolutely. So our smart call feature, as I mentioned earlier, does reach out to both landlines as well as mobile phones. So no matter what type of phone number a resident has, you are going to be able to reach them through that smart call feature. When you generate this call, you have the option to either send that out community-wide to all of your residents, or you can narrow that down into specific residents. So you can reach just those who prefer phone calls and do text messages for the others, or you can cover your bases and send both out to all of your residents. When you send this call out, residents are going to receive a robotic phone call relaying the message that you as an administrator have typed out. So if you say, you know, landfall of this hurricane is expected to happen at 1 a.m. Eastern time, they will receive a robotic phone call relaying that message. That will leave a voicemail. So even if they are not able to answer that call live, that's going to be waiting for them in their voicemail box so that they still have access to all of that information.
That's great. That's great news, because it's very important, since we have community members from different ages and different tax experiences, as we mentioned before, right? So it's good that we get everybody covered on regards of their best or preferred mean of message and communication.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes. You want to make sure that you are reaching out to residents, especially if they have communicated that they have a preferred channel. It's a great way to make sure that you're sending out that channel to those specific residents.
Okay, great. So I think that's it. Thank you everybody for being here. Happy 4th of July. I hope everybody can be safe and sound during this hurricane season. And please count with Vinteum and with Neighbors and all of the team to help you go through that and to help improve your HOA and condo management.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you so much, Amanda. Like she mentioned, happy 4th of July, everyone. Stay safe this hurricane season. And we are here for any questions. We're here to help you go digital. So please reach out. I would love to chat with your individual community. And thank you so much for hosting us, Peggy.
Thank you, Peggy.
Awesome.